fish with every scout.
Yeah, I got to do only one round this time.
Oh.
We're doing like 7 hours
There you go.
per
I don't know. There's like so many, and I don't know which ones.
Nope, I got you.
I will plug you in anywhere you would like. You don't mind me using your extension. Camaraderie.
I have an extension outlet.
Oh, damn.
So that's like,
Can you scoot that way like
That is a
6 to 7 inches?
There's a
Like,
This
physically,
table is like
yeah.
awkwardly just a bit small.
I'm
Yeah.
also down. Worst
Remember
case
this
scenario,
too.
just swap. If you
Okay.
need to.
I can
You
like
good.
scuttle elsewhere.
I hate to say it, but maybe. Maybe we scoot along here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for continually taking your seat.
Don't worry about it. My job is to deal away, so.
Fair.
well, I at least put my name on it. So hopefully it'll
I feel like
stuff.
I should get like a card.
There's a
I think
paragraph
you're
I wrote
the
out
last
about
hand to see my
it.
happiness with
Make
that.
sure you put that at the top.
Really?
I think I've judged almost all of you this year. Cycling through.
We'll be the best ones,
I'm
probably.
excited.
Most
You
fun.
judge all
That
the
is.
Canadian teams over the course of the year, you get a free yellow sub.
That's what I was thinking.
Is it Planet?
Hey, yeah, what's up?
Yeah, what's
Maybe
up?
like hair slicing ice cream.
Yeah.
I like
You have to vote for them, and then
Yeah,
have
he'll buy you
something.
McAllister's before his screen.
That's fair. Now it's like again.
Is that amenable or like?
Totally works. I might be sitting like here, but if you're okay with that.
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Can you check?
And
Is
also
that-
feel free to do whatever you need to do.
Perfect.
If that
We
comes
can-
to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just-
You say? Did you get?
So I think it's a phone number.
Yeah, go for it. Really.
Have y'all sent the?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was sitting like off the bat.
Oh, is it just like the on the same like NDT?
Yeah.
That's not a ton, but I don't think you'll need a ton probably. But we can later.
I'll let you know if I do.
Okay.
Slash steal something.
Everyone good? Cool. Plan the United States should adopt the nuclear no first use policy, restricting the first use of nuclear forces against the people's public and China. The advantage is liberalism first use posture. It limits American conventional involvement in the Pacific because they don't know China will misinterpret the strike as nuclear. That will lead to a damned if they do, damned if they don't situation where American either destroys the world in a nuclear war or lets China aggress in the Pacific by not conventionally intervening in Pacini. It's when you diversify counter China's arsenal as well that exclusively alone can maintain U.S. dominance and crisis. Therefore, it is for China from aggressive as a posture superior at all levels with the aggressive. The pressure to some capability U.S. might and on the wrong side of an instability paradox we've seen a solution over reliance on prerogative behavior. A strategy responding to arsenal be the U.S. will done multiple levels of understanding that misreduction is being implemented before crisis war China and the U.S. It says the different relationship China the leaders will be conservative, assuming that any missiles nuclear probably presumption escalation of pressure of nuclear conduct even if the missile is in and a regional crisis missile representing conventional arms attack would be probably U.S. leaders would suddenly have a good reason to hesitate and some those control that could risk not major conventional model system like cruise missiles with nuclear option making that responsible unless usable in the favor of nuclear isolation part of German the threshold of nuclear use and to communicate with the policy of force Australian building a low conflict will be managed as getting the threshold that would improve a stronger posture reducing uncertainties and crises inside by denying officers the chance to win the conventional conflict of willingness to take a risk and diminish would not be single aggressive in the first place but when an officer holds an investigation not just because battle targets but the U.S. cities will also have an option that the current enemy might take the enemy might take the ability to escalate these invasion nuclear strategies 60 years at a counter nuclear black escalation options U.S. opposing accidental for the whole humanity should the conflict over this demonstrating flashpoints only invite further future escalation any conflict over SCS I wonder some other strategic system at the very end of the escalation ladder of promising annihilation of strong move that engage in counter China's renal inhibition to more optimizing U.S. posture preservation to turn to all out of dominance of the United States fighting and never conflict China although reaching a conventional arsenal in the background maybe you see as a conventional sort of opposite nuclear shoot aggression is possible about being a top cover and nuclear use will not deter China but only conventional missiles can because of the mutual inability of Beijing to turn a decision made on conventional force current in 23. Beyond Beijing commitment to no free use any scenario, China will have little incentive to use weapons early because of the conventional of the military superiority. If she does not want to move it against Taiwan, he would have the basically conflict China to conventional forces to leave. U.S. forces that concern new limited nuclear, so the conventional conflict of isolation becomes a concern to strategic forces that are under attack, China being conflict using nuclear weapons to avoid a catastrophic outcome. It would understand it would be difficult to understand the USCW's for decision and for China's calculation because they would or the prompt response to US very conventional given for isolation. If all nuclear targets will be used on China's mainland, either the US or the US with a red line of any China isolation, asymmetry of an transmission also getting further because likelihood of unwanted retaliation, the benefits is all in the nuclear non-regular and balance of conventional forces, nuclear missiles, discrimination, obviously concerning an adversary cannot discern whenever there's a missile, and conventional nuclear China, maybe overreacted and never escalation because I don't think the US ability to execute operation because they would have to drastically and most exciting diplomatic implication for US and East Asia and the globe. And our conventional missile deterrence will change the game against China, Germany, but is the only usable with NRT code 19. The PRC features hypersonic weapons to be precursor of nuclear attack, if the understanding and views it as a miscalculation, escalation begins and without current China military, keep moving away from another certain toward aggressive, I've been for Germany, China continue to understand that they're having striving for years, and for US hypersonic weapon for this over years bombs, the right to PRC Germany, they don't weapons well, and maintaining US and Pacific and Germany, maintaining the establishment of world order, US uses for the deterrent China, hypersonic seem to be another piece of the puzzle to extend that it becomes a question for power hypersonic system, I saw US to deter the Pacific by holding a US power protection on the NASA's PRC umbrella, like complicates the US response to any crisis that hypersonics and the next to the new nuclear even both the US and China have developed hypersonics like the same system as a conventional arsenal will not need to be used for London, will not affect the stability of relations. And China is a realist, aggressive power that does not act in response to the US actions but in pursuit of their own international interests. That challenges US security in the Pacific on 21. During Obama's term, the reliability of China's nations and the China poses challenges of integration and opposition to so-called military exercises and understanding China's real power as a key strategy consistent with US interests in the stable Pacific, accommodating reaching security, aims with the PRC to annex Taiwan and bolden China's assertive games and CSU and stability in the Pacific, peace and credibility in US defense, and the favor of China's aggression, Beijing evaluates the US intervention risk capabilities and include extremes such as hypersonics, the greater risk of less credible intervening will appear to Beijing. Therefore, this is an statistical US have to maintain the use of force costs to include the reduced vulnerability of US forces missile attack the raising costs of China's aggression. China defend objective steps of action cycle, but even with the current limited capabilities China to develop its own advanced missile vulnerability of US forces will not be missile to be done again and not the economic demonstration for guys and nation. SGBs appears to different Taiwan will not be repeated in the missile sites of the world and the Chinese silo sites of house ICBMs of China a strategy to break out in the holiday from realism and made the Pacific more dangerous, hoping that China would change Washington to sort of pressure in the Pacific is strong. A defense will promote it to the stable Pacific goes now a confidence of allies, and that realism is not defensive. China is an illiberal power that we use it to achieve revisionist objective directly in 23. China wants US to haul arms cells reduce military presence to run democracy. US wants China to develop force in Taiwan. I see this like an autocratic regime and neither would grant concessions without undermining the abilities of the deter aggression of the other two spouse of the opposing visions of international order. China portraying itself as a defender against imperialism. The US is rather allying democracy said the ideology said also easy because ideology is linked to stable regime. China seems to be now whether specific ideology really just want authoritarian governments because the autocrat is less likely to criticize China for the right for its right. China and the leaders would favor democracy to look symbolic and both countries promoted regimes heavily against Washington engaged in the 20 cents a failed. The change to be goal of the as a search for solution to because China's unwilling to obey goals of hegemony international documents for China's leaders interpreted the overture of an opportunity to mass about power sees to be developed authority and it says China's had a future while using espionage sees to be firms on the market sees to be access and that's propaganda century 9 foreign ideas China seems leadership US leadership and the liberal institutions as you and the liberal direction change should be for exports all in the military control the nasty a greater rejuvenation nation strategy to go to 2021 and then one and we'll have theirs actually China created how I said the limitations that defensive realism so instead of accommodating the better off for the public capabilities that are China and the ones that conquer East Asia China versus solving the slowly shrinking population of these headwinds grow East Asia and still got stable and the next leaders of the side honor and station and reform years again then look at all branch to get the video salvage regression and avoid concessions and a China-led order will result in global war and devastating WDs and peace cooperation on transnational challenges weighing and 19 the rights of PRC has been a challenge for US only Beijing opposes the flexes and neighbors right to the American leadership undermine US global order and security PRC to secure for all the world order the rise of the Chinese power and autocracy of the CCP again a contest in the world order and mandates authoritarian governments of the whole world the PRC a power taking advantage of culture to respond and inequality epidemics and terror notify the odds of the LAO and China competition of point is this is not a challenge of politics of various unsecure real estate even more resourceful one determined PRC they will not manage that the US will have a much worse population war for security and world leadership in the HW is heroin having a global position world peace in the world will set out how the PRC is managed and global liberal cooperation solves existential threats in 1930 Future feels more threatening than ever since the U.S. no going on. Russia trying to clear a ball air with eliminate humans and our liberal democracy to climate leader extinction not a call for place. You have a responsibility to build a world that prevents calamities, even a liberal democracy that the U.S. is super hard for you. Anticipate the rights of China's nationals because for the first we're going to despite patriotic because democracy has never been more cooperating with people living in democratic countries survive is even less essential only way to tackle less instead of surface pragmatic solution to best and advance some issues radical ideas to the rather form rather than abandon the institutions for the UN to the cooperation reinforce that alliances range from the mitigate climate proliferation WD and including inequalities pandemics and the super bugs of regime and bioengineering rules domain and shadowing trade and NFU solves hesitancy surrounding conventional lobbying region and Government 23. In 2021, being designed as sensibility, but saw the year later distributed relief for the nuclear Islamic fought the stoppage order of engine because they leave your presidency of Star by saying the unit service of the NFU, the two career confidence measures to reinforce, and if you avoid action like on nuclear war, through this process, exercise and intentions including the suit, be clever and sharp regarding the inclusivity over Taiwan, CS Star, China, conflict, the U.S. patients of G's 110 China and U.S. service into new sex, and autonomous stability and stability on the cruise path, platform could allow war neither will hesitate to use war escalate rapidly, and offensively, using the plane strikes and not separate hostilities again, hesitation could defeat conflict, could be destruction very quickly, damage the likelihood of the nuclear weapons rise to turn individuals attack have the capability of China to rescue and launch nuclear weapons that be destroyed and not have the help of the U.S. strikes first. And mutual NFU is credible. I in 18 is less like the U.S. will ever deliver to conduct nuclear for China to fight variants into the later discourse with NFU shows a strong diversion to U.S. A decision about the U.S. that has been influenced by taboo given destructive effects of the record indicate the U.S. leaders have a deep apprehension about free speech. China believes that China's accidental China simply gets analysis and losses tens of millions acceptable in a real world of political leverage. A decision of making a wrong about one country. It could be catastrophic NFU privilege China and U.S. virtual practices that reflect the proximity policy, but please clarify and interpretation of each other doctrine of China and U.S. India. Appreciate the risk of and avoided domestic algorithms and immediate question is whether the NFU declaration of law enforcement and planning can be trusted to command is sufficient for strategic stability. Other something that can be used to China sufficient share the faith and safety of NFU again. Explain NFU at least a little when it can be initially this for the future Washington fall from there. And China's already enforced it Zhao and 22 for Beijing and NFU gives an acknowledgement of mutual vulnerability, but China the foundation for stability mutual NFU reduce because of the first more last Washington models. Nuclear forces both sides common no one inside against use first. The timer.
God. His timer scares me every time.
No, like, he's scared to shout. Okay. Because they made it.
Y'all good?
Yeah.
My first question is about the Wang 19 evidence.
Yeah.
The last sentence of the card says, quote, America's global position and way of life are all rest on how the PRC challenge is managed soon. Can you just expand on what you think an American way of life is?
We think, in the context of this card, it's talking about America's stance in the liberal international order, our ability to cooperate with allies on things like climate change, AI technology, and regulations.
Well, hold on. Okay, so you said in the context of this card, none of the card mentions AI or allies. It does mention the way that the PRC is challenging the LIO. The next card says the way America engages with the LIO. So in the context of allies, what is that way of life and the way it cooperates with? It's cooperation with liberal alliances. With liberal alliance, what does that cooperation look like? The MUGA card, I feel like, describes it incredibly well, saying that it looks like cooperative deterrence against countries like North Korea, Iran, Russia, or North Korea, and it is also cooperation over things like emerging tech, climate change, other existential threats. U.S. power over the Western world. How does the U.S. get its resources to become that power in the first place? I don't think the 1AC takes a stance on resource extraction. Let's talk about resource extraction then, since you brought it up. Does U.S. resource extraction happen as a result of enslavement and genocide of Black and Indigenous people? Or the 1AC doesn't take a stance on that, right? The 1AC does not affect anything about resource extraction.
Yeah, we've not said anything.
I'm not asking about what the 1AC affects. We'll disagree about that. My question is that it's do you agree that one of the foundational ways the U.S. becomes a world power is through enslavement and genocide?
We are not going to answer that question because the 1AC is on base stance on resource extraction, etc.
You can win that.
You can ask us to make these agree to nebulous questions.
Well, it's not a whitewashing of history.
It doesn't matter.
You can make arguments about past.
I'm going to move on.
Well, I can get
NFU being credible. How does this do you have a card that says the people who are advocating NFU also agree that China is offensive realist and illiberal nation, etc.? I feel like the top half of the 1AC is China is this evil nation, and the bottom half is but we need to cooperate with China. What card do you have
the Bittner and Gompertz evidence is very consistently about nuclear use versus China and nuclear deterrence against China being bad, but conventional deterrence being good. The ability to quote hesitate to use conventional forces. Sorry, I completely misheard you. Benedict Gumpert, the line that is bolded into like 16-point font says that hesitation could lead to defeat is in the context of not using conventional weaponry because we are restrained because of nuclear use.
Wait, okay, hypersonic missiles. Do you know which corporations develop hypersonic weapons? Because that's what the card is saying. Like that you use
I don't know like the list of corporations developing things, but we've identified that hypersonic.
So corporations like Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, you can search it up. They require like prison labor in order to make those weapons. Do you think that's fine?
Well, we would argue the inverse, that like the people making the nukes also require bad labor, extraction. We do an NFP policy, which shifts our policy away.
But you said hypersonics good.
We've said U.S. hypersonics and ability to strike China conventionally is a
which
good
require prison labor.
I'm sending it right now. It'll be one and then peace. Oh, that should be set.
Sorry, my friend from Missouri State here who's got it. What's your name?
I'm Joe. Or just.
Joe. That hat. Exquisite. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. You need to get with Rob Glass, who's got his. Rob Glass wore this great martini glass shirt at NCA, where I think would go just like perfect match with the.
I'm not sure if those were
nice.
cards under the off.
Rest in peace.
That was sense.
Oh,
they're crazy. I don't know.
Am I still wrong?
I think it might have just not been.
I probably didn't save it.
Yeah.
Bro, I thought this was about to be some crazy like card 1 and C, and then you
Yeah,
start with
yeah,
like
I
you start with like the A-Sham cards.
You know, I'm just talking.
I opened that. I was like,
I'm sorry, what?
is that like an assurance?
Are you,
to say
like-
that? What off assurance is 15 impact scenarios. That's
Okay,
also.
we went to Margaritaville once and got that. Oh, I've only
Yeah,
been
okay.
but I really like the song. I've been looking for podcasts for a while. I like speakers.
I just did.
I'll make a
That was
new
not
document.
research.
No, I didn't. Margaritaville? Go on.
Okay, so USC is on the app. They're at their like set collie middle, like we don't know if it's a calf or not. It's our half. And then the 1NC, one of many off from Trinity, because they just threw the things at the wall to see if it's policy or not, was a 1-card Margaritaville. Let's just step back. And it was like a fiat card. And Claire from USC, in the debate, cut a card that Jimmy Buffett was on Epstein's flight logs. And,
Holy shit.
then the Trinity got up and said, we had no idea, this just ruined our entire world, and apologize for the world as well, because we lost one today. And, you know,
Well,
Oh my gosh, the
That
whole
is-
I never thought I would judge that debate, but it happened.
answering is hard, and then maybe telling Trinity that one of their faves is problematic is like that's a brutal 1-2 punch. Sorry.
I was missing the, never mind.
I just needed a nice bucket afternoon.
I know, I'm sorry. I don't know if true, I didn't see I don't know if there was a card.
Big if Trinity.
Did you recently?
Sad.
I'm piling it. No time to sleep now, bro. Got one more. Okay, it should be sent for real now.
Cool, yeah.
I'm sorry, what's the order?
It'll be 1 and then the advantage. I'll just wait till I know everybody has it.
Turn off and here and see solids.
You feel me? Yeah, just in case. Yeah.
I love these things.
Do some stock debating.
That's my favorite.
Right.
I just got it.
Okay, cool.
I still don't have it. I'm sorry.
You're good. Take your time.
Okay, I'm downloading it, but my Mac takes a minute.
All good. I can't wait to ask Claire about the layer and be like, so, Epstein's Island, huh?
All I know is it was a weird one thing that just happened and they immediately kicked it. I was just like, I love that you did that. You were just like, don't have a card, be one.
There's some comedian who's got this great bit about how the Margaritaville as a song changes, if you imagine that it's being sung from like one of the like Margaritaville locations in like, you know, a mall in Des Moines, Iowa or something like that, that the song becomes a very, very sad tale if you shift its location away from the beach and towards like this sad chain dive bar somewhere in Middle America.
Yeah. Suburban imaginaries, thinking play Donnie Darko a little bit there.
Yeah, there you go.
I think that's awesome.
We're both.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll start off.
We're just riffing.
Yeah, like honestly,
We don't
it's
have to
been
bits at any point for debate.
it's been a rough weekend. Vibes are nice.
I'll start in a couple of seconds.
Nuclear weapons are an exception to a slavery that projects ontological terror of blackness into the world. William 11 economic identity was slavery intended to western at least the black and not into the world ratio. Apparently nuclear weapons to the currently by black and teams to emphasize the Western morality and desire. Ability of the West psychological parts of both nuclear arming and nuclear safely have been justified to disorders of science to nuclear weapons that be based on the genuine racial oppression and mass murder race. Terror understand nuclear weapons that were novelty amongst the world. Really happy to be back in recent American capitalism, alcohol and security, both with the nuclear debt, one of the big perishing universal along with living with the possibility of death. And to only racial capitalism and imploding, to extend the perma crisis to one they see traditional security firm failed to realize the cynical failure guided to unconscious natural feeling as secured to black and indigenous deaths at Angelo 2024 the colonial racial global continue concept racial violence roads coops and police and inequality homicide and structure racism integral of the 2000 order how the academic and the right to solve into a beautiful kind of gathering natural fitting ideal of the universe and individual flag plan distance like kind of security we talk about the black bodies or not the body security but expendable facts in the black and uncivilized the identity will be eliminated to move the correct thing and the ultimate ideal security so the criminalization and the race and sovereignty are usually called and sovereignty contribution shipping out into the pressure and the possible and also the direct security and all life to give us everything we have a turning point with the climate change and then they're blending inflation into the security and the geopolitical competition creating democracy impacting the people alone in the streets and Ukraine, Cuba, Africa, Israel, Israeli military intervention and how some of the race and more associated with geopolitical inflation and that's able to conceal the collapse of the race of fun, the colonial race and social contract and our interpretation that the one he sees a research project who spits modesty should be scrutinized due to hermeneutic of suspicion and net benefit demytholizing white desire study that leads to political class of giving our respect that were lost their ground and predictability claim resolve structural unfairness over the position of black and dating and leads to more material change when presenting fiat illusory impact turning all the skills arguments don't go for that separate 20D deep into the integrating involving the ignorance look at the country now with the need to reset reback and the maternity proof for raising the human in all but then the alley within solidarity reveal what has been obscured was the error responsible absolutely we're going to research and agree power with absolutely the empire all practically informed to hermetic suspicion identifying what our necessary for institutional change and genocide.
Skip to the one he sees a form.
It's like
or Western Alliance systems are foundation.
and Western alliances are foundational imperial without saving that separate 20D imperial condition nothing Western Union really absolute resources and German military challenges the Western cooperation and not the line of imperial concernity theory delivery is right for northern corruption and functional lines in particular over slices of business abstracting the individual resort of more optimism with the delay faith and limit goals by finding countries in Western colonies so white so take positioning produces intellectual limits and when they see the former hegemonic anti-nuclearism that justifies conventional shift to military industrial complex and global racial capitalism and 22 hegemonic including into the dominant discourse and non-proliferation kind of funding using academic to the government agencies I know this is a nuclear weapons on top of nuclear weapons with understanding about power and ability down into the nuclear weapons same secondary framework factor the way the nuclear activation to the inside people not positive reference to well take a long time to finally just where you do the substitution nuclear weapons strategic weapons agree how imperialism tend to be absent as nigger plenty creates a culture of war that makes their impact inevitable. That's Oberg truly military exercise environment reify war becomes a war we already have around weapon platform and separation mean the trying to produce anti war representation process military training creates a power to reform the war upon the industry like practices of war in the future problems situation or mastery the company category terrorism policing managing that training practices the result in preparation for future conflict or how war becomes and the realist assumptions are epistemically bankrupt requiring the regular ongoing violence that structures the LIO countless power theories and the state's legitimacy that acknowledges to 2040 African slave indigenous and houses with the capital and Ireland and intellectual labor with realism U.S. produce knowledge about the British power liberals produce knowledge about the like realism military power this is crucial element in the hegemonic power and the realism to be analytic convinced and racist you also able to lead the U.S. and we not vital power such as China opposed was related to giving competition be to the again point to the way liberal ruling and colonial imperial safety and race and mistakes and the capital mental weakness in the club and the concept of imperial colonial practice and liberalism and turn to colonial global colonizing the liberal peace democracy and freedom and conquering with trade on company about the needless essential anti-racist reform and the possible redeem liberalism and other racist gospel liberalism as the ethical global power notions like power between care power resigning power army to one say to business it was less like powers and business and mission colonialism and enslavement is affect element power relation justified by certainty and imperialism, and fixation on the action of China, a reason for the plan legitimacy is framed through military orientalism and sutures, and structured the Western desire to locate the modes of the self in the other, resulting in zero policy failure. Matter to maintain orientalism reasons Western civilization and acting the Asian ability to develop this ability weapon before the sexual or racialism fused with the racial stereotype was the race was like with race relation more likely for the challenge in the Western against the military, either the Western concerned about the field of the self and the use of the society imagery representing the United States of virtuous nation, reluctantly the ability to fulfill its divine use of like resources to reinforce and reject the legitimacy and new nation, the military nation investment new government solidified by the dominance and the dynamic of the difference like the other makes the dynamic of Western control, and the alternative to the abolition of one state security studies in favor of security breach that Montana, truly was security study, but there's a way to source of and race abolition, no security and the reflected to the discussion about take one of the area where the description of the Western general security lots of choice abolition was lots of police in the United States about the reality for life group collective property and security and stuff like that city but can't be revolution damage from the nuclear property was dropped to over in the red for the conversation about slavery colonialism and the integration of the West Coast lots of men about making aliens urging the government not made home and brother you we figure about the limits of otherwise than not the real feel self the race for regeneration of the security African countries and the abolition of the connected people in brother rather than incarceration and any dispensation for creation and extracting security such as deepening government by religion logical coloniality is ever done to another the performance security reason racial affiliation. Go to case now. 1. The extinction turn the extinction discourse of race that back off and nuclear things like taking the living another nuclear history and discourse of race and high nuclear wars and one way to make up for African Americans like trying to review nuclear like virtual all the way to that to go to our country that's part of the country like in those race military of extinction race determined like before now just a bomb and once our family are trying to build shelter for people so we were found out please say clear out that will be for the for the like and no free use policy, naturalization of nuclear weapons while giving policymakers a platform to deflect critical critique and evaluation that happens at Action 22. Reform is a counter-strategy of fundamental subsidies for the maintaining reproduce the quality of life for certain people. The parts of reproduce the advanced army and the solid repackaging judgment never actually taken up a state denied for acting able to reform is responsibility of free policy to the direction of comments and policy with legal for acting relying on the reframe for trying to discuss the impact on the nuclear the same reform is the quality of inclusion of engaged critique and their app operates.
Can you go down to the speech act?
Yeah. And speech act uniquely imposed the murder page or subject as a Taro. 9. The murder page imposed the history of the emerging alcoholism, whatever it was, and maybe more than
they skipped all the rest. And they skipped down to speech acts.
Aggression and saying U.S. heads is better than other justified masters is a problem. 9. Imitating American solution of the manufacturing of American fighting the only way to save the world, turn down high-tech proliferation and loyal to make progressive into ports to mass slaughter. And go to defense now. 1. Analyze every card we win to take out to the AFF. Prove that China is not offensive realist. We not need to win the competing frame RR to understand China's actually could be simply impact during the trying to study at China. The realistic frame in the first place. Also, no impact talks are happening now in the status quo versus resolving conflict. Even if relations are great, there's no risk of nuclear war in the status quo. You should prefer all our evidence below because more recent also no sovereignty. China still trust the U.S. Multiple all causes U.S. racial aggression, economic safety, etc. All prove that yes, if you cannot be the internal link to resolve conflict. But even if 1A, John Alliance is strong now, nobody wants to go to war as Stranglo. 9. 70 Italian ingredient company refreshes by the time he's done. He's in the carbon relevant that moves we do in the China, each other carbon reform in the country in Ukraine. Without repeating Asian president defending Nazi confidence on their faith in the Asian and no chance any officials agree. That's cool. 23 the U.S. team and the taking Taiwan and US for the second Kindle said Kindle concentration work together and no invasion. China is seeking pre-making and semiconductors. That's Brennan. 23 the
on the defense if they're not skipping
spending energy in the peacemaking of people can be Ukraine or was welcome for return today and see the being the city follows the and I ran in the street to go make the union for business and the time over going on to going on in the bringing over on the reputation so we change our business company China is likely to happen in the world how it should be and there was 15 years away. I'm gonna go back to the $1. I already go to the $1 cards. Or actually, did I? No, I didn't. Okay. Google Citizen. And their app operates as a Google Citizen and other radical movements against you, systematic person that's $1. Oh, not do that by having neither free the colonial immigration, I think you can deliver room, the Chinese community goes in and out, really help them to the custom motivation, one of the need to do some high beating and killing, identifying immigration, understanding one emotion, and the right possible way, they think the solution, the product of needs to help and for money, saturate for a good money, physical leadership, motivation around more value, the right, with the consequence of more than the quest of equality, justification, the interviews acting the high level of the room will make domination to help maintain or change and eliminate the toleration on the other side.
You good?
Sure.
Okay, I want to start on this Baghdad card on case says that nuclear war would not be universal. If it was, white people would be the last to go extinct. Go down, it says white suburban families were instructed to build shelters. Poor people of color were insisted to flee the city. Why is this not a reason why extinction and preventing nuclear war is a good idea?
Because that's the argument. It's always that the claims to prevent nuclear war are inherently racialized, because the ways that the U.S. comes to those things is always through racialized actions that put people of color at the end of the world in the first place.
The U.S. came...
And also causes nuclear violence to people as well. It's not
well, why does it cause nuclear violence to try and prevent nuclear war whenever you've read a card saying that poor, marginalized, and communities of color are at risk?
We've made competing claims about the world, and especially in the context of the Diplomacy, in the ways in which the U.S. doing policies like an NFU not only increases structural violence, but also increases the chance for nuclear violence to be more likely in the first
I want to ask about that thesis claim. What structural violence happens as a material result of the AFF?
There's a couple of things, right? Well, we think that the one, Oberg, we think we start on the level of epistemology, right? We think the 1AC only makes conflict inevitable through constant theorization of war.
Well, the Oberg card is about the current military status and the inevitability of warfare used planning. Well, I disagree. It's about the way that military and tactical operational practices and military training and exercises are occurring in the status quo. Like, I cut this card too, and it definitely does not conclude that like anything in the future changes. It's about current military practices.
We've said you are no different.
Right.
Like,
okay, so
it
like
also talks
we
about
are
military exercise training. Like,
okay, so we are. So the Oberg card says we are no different than the status quo. Do you think it makes an offensive argument?
Yeah, that it is offensive.
Okay, so next argument, what is the material next result of the AFF being bad?
It reifies the conditions of war, right? You planning for these things in educational spaces makes it so that you build up the anxiety so much that NFU gets broken in the future.
NFU gets broken in the future?
Yeah.
So like, the argument is that like the plan is not durably fiated, some future president
I think
roll it back?
It's not just a question of durable fiat. It's that because of the scenarios that you have imagined as a result of the 1AC, you make it so that policymakers in the U.S. have so much anxiety that they don't follow their own practices.
Yeah. Okay, I don't think that's how fiat works.
I think the alternative, probably gonna go for
we're not talking about fiat.
But also the 2AC is probably gonna go for like a legal restrictions argument. We think that there have been multiple nuclear treaties in the past that the U.S. has broken, even after signing and ratifying.
I don't know how that works. The Manchada card, like the alternative. No, that's not how I agree with fiat. The Manchada card, what does an abolition of our security studies look like, and how does it resolve the links?
We think that it looks like a rejection of the 1AC, first off. We think Manchada is pretty good in the ways in which if we want any link to the AFF, we must abolish security studies due to frame of the 1AC. That's the only way we can do things like reinvest into solutions that sort of tackle the issues that Aga Entry was talking about.
Okay, that makes sense.
Colonization and slavery.
That makes sense. Two final questions. Can you pick the alternative? Does it change anything materially from the status quo, or is it a continuation just like through rejection?
Yeah, that's a couple questions.
That's
okay. So I guess three questions. Can you kick the alt? Does it change the status quo?
The alternative will be in the 2NR. Does it change the status quo? It changes the status quo by at least refusing the app.
Yeah. 10 minutes. Stop, right? 9:20.
So I've been underutilizing this entire judgment.
They could go for the two.
It's sent. Can I stand?
They are all broken in like the other building that has a ton of debates in it. I forgot what it's called.
Anthropology was like all that broken. Drank way too little water yesterday. Who did you all debate this morning?
Emory.
Oh, that's right.
Danny G.
I just learned he's a frosh. I'm upset. He's so tall.
Yeah.
Best debaters are tall freshmen.
You're a frosh?
Yeah.
How are you 7 foot tall?
Alright, it was sent order is case K. Yeah. Let me know when you all both have it open.
It's just down. The spirally thing on your email is so cool. How do you do that?
So Gmail.
Oh my god, dude!
You're like
don't
the
get
fifth person
excited.
to say that this weekend.
That's so
Gmail
sick.
added this feature in 2015, and the only reason that's my profile picture is because I typed "cool GIF" into Google and downloaded the first option.
I see.
So it's a whole what?
Cool GIF, just like moving pictures.
Yeah, I'm not fucking.
You saying cool
GIF. Oh, gotcha. I took me way too long to realize what you were saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Graphics interchange format.
Alright, I'm good with you are.
One.
Avengers gonna be long.
Yeah.
It's the difference between like Lawrence and Manhattan.
I'm good. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just missed out.
No, you're okay. All right. Long Beach, good. Great. Current U.S. nuclear posture is unsustainable. Either conventional missiles get misinterpreted as nuclear due to ambiguous entanglement, or the U.S. restraints used because they fear nuclear conflict. 2 impacts. First, nuclear war. China's ramping up to preemptively launch. This calculation ensures that inevitable that escalates to global war and ensures annihilation. Fashini. Second, liberal order. U.S. restraint allows China to establish a liberal autocratic sphere of influence by taking over territory like Taiwan or that collapses the U.S.-led order, ensuring extensional AI, climate change, and nuclear war. That's Beckley and Muga. The 1AC is an impact toward each link. Liberalism will collapse now. Absent the AFF reclaiming illiberal violence returns. The critique absent a solution to states' international system. Independently reproduction of nuclear and IR scholarship is inevitable with or without an alternative. 2 reasons. First, realism. China pursues national interest through security proven by missile breakouts and the SK-7 not reaction to U.S. action. Second, revisions of China's autocratic system of governance challenges liberalism, takes its violence to state control. Surveillance both act as dissents to the alternative absence sustaining the U.S.-led liberal order. Violence inevitable at the behest of a rising China. 2AC1 was extinction K1. Concede that distinction will not be universal. If it was, then whites would build it lots ago. This is our argument for why the war is racist. As for the Scarred Card Arena. Second, it is impossible to conceptualize life after the bomb because we would all be dead. But if it's possible, we would do it by critiquing nuclear war because of its racial implications. We'll assert the card here, but it's so AF. Want to see Bomb Devon 19-3 nuclear conflict. Felix mass suffering is undemonstrated by White Wall spirals. We agent destruction elbow. View interview Scar 19 of the nuclear requires public to be limited decision of war. And the oldest people have internalized the world of the population. This rotated to be asleep with the one the close genocide in the way because I've waited happen. Silence video. What type of future we have to say in a peril. When people just kind of address it because they're not with the DOD. And then it's spent buildings on the presidential office shelter. While convincing public shelters are ridiculous. U.S. beliefs only agents of nuclear it's rival and never get past it. And they didn't want to excuse it. And they can't change it. I believe arguments released on my address weapons attack. Companies attention genocide. And they teach it to the classical sentimentality. And how we speak. But you're doing entry from the best well. A horror texture massacre stands waiting. The Atchison cards. It's a distraction. Disarmament. That's bad. Ogan 15 complete. Disarmament teacher difficult. Divide also to do the turns work. Maybe cut that up right. It sees the second strike, which is good to prevent conventional conflict from escalating and for making China want to do it. That's the I card. The entire evidence reps don't shape reality, which is what the card says it causes. Which him unfortunately clever John automatically the first hours through the process of contemplation between an image and intervention on the population of opinions that on an image by the century. Syncretic and this is the rediscussion casual theories conceive how the racial recast of political Chinese behavior is more nuanced in their theory given the credit for. Anything else is orientalizing in turns. They're often saying 20 PRC behavior is worse than the pressure over the SK's question about it's overstrained version of hard in the states and the truth becomes a tight to drive revision behavior Western IR that parallels and Chinese tradition where states having documents out indicate to the irreversible take after the wise parallels and the surprising several million take after the similarities in land and national scholarship because also unable to understand China because they're Westerns orientalists not only apply I say very better with this understanding parts a little promise for body combination. The second target card is wrong. It is only our evidence descriptive the distinction China's autocratic and violence but liberal values can at least be reclaimed separate of U.S. action and the alternative is infinitely worse. I compare to what keeps U.S. afloat is unfettered trivial. I also the progressive impulse idea the U.S. is more than a country established of the world with ideals and they respond to liberation movements found Gandhi to Havel and Adela the story the U.S. advances on going over comprehensive impediments and contest easier overturn rules make them the dictator of people people expect more for the U.S. and the China the measure U.S. against American data because it is more making review against also how the country never fully lived up to liberty as a never go to hypocrisy feature of the liberal non impediment to making it better. The next argument they cannot just win that China is not an offensive realist are reading a bunch of cards in NEIR. We've read reasons why with empirics examples etc. for why it is. Second the production of IR scholarships is inevitable absent the AFF which is all the framing above. No impact yes. Talks are breaking down the genius and says that they are mobilizing things now to exploit the U.S. No solvency yes. It's credible that I evidence in the comparative says that China believes in NFU and it thinks it's a sacrosanct. The next card is Asian strong irrelevant. China's offensive testing U.S. capabilities and boundaries now also doesn't mean that China is going to war. No the chance yes. Testing the edge of what the U.S. will do. Okay. framework. The ballot is a referendum on the hypothetical consequences of the plan. Leads to the plan's implementation must mean all the ecology selves are harmed, with the inclusion of that plan precluding that solvency. 2 net benefits. First, fairness. Plan focus is most predictable, non-arbitrary. Other interpretation ex post shifts the goalpost, which boosts the 1AC. Second, education. Comparison of opportunity cost methods is bad. The liberation lacks value absent application, since liberalism consequentialism is that has 2 implications. A, fiat is good, even if the plan never actually happens. Less testing political strategy that jumpstarts radical advocacy. B, scholarship only focus fails. Hin 23 of the some argument if it's like a rock, the liberal national, the liberal national is not dead. Americans just support Irish foreign policy voters aware of individual American leaders with this more nationalism and individual human rights, all only institutions of consumer rock at the end of the internationalism with North relevance outside the U.S. countries located the UN to advance their interests, especially the global south has an interest in UN, which only a liberal strategy can ensure. The countries depend on the liberal order while far from perfect performance services no state can do it itself. Such as a woman's fighting cultural side peace and calling for as you argue is eccentric as your liberal hawks, however some when the debate was said but of rock was bad, reducing debate and pro-con adventure makes it hard to respond to crises and believes a poor analysis and nationalism still viable in the world depends on America's range strategy, but U.S. policy based problem around the invasion rather than policy we could adopt. Prefer the K's attempted epistemic purities simply passively feeding into China's rise. Vickers 19 of the epistemic violence is critical assault revolution stopping of Western hegemony, however we seek to combat oppression is combat pagan enemies of external money, universal values and action, liberal liberties rule along which critical assault of themselves rely critiques of hegemony hold. A stronger appeal was not likely to despite constructive contribution to address problems of our age, common poverty, inequality, likely to lapse national autocracy Beijing will be happy to declare critical scholars of funded against the West while embracing epistemological defense so far as ongoing politics concerned equalness and to be conservative. In fact, these deficits apply to the K even if we lose framework. The NEG is winning their tradition. Just means the AFF is hegemonic. The AFF still has offense versus justifications with which they have to when it's bad. Perm do both. How the alternative can overcome the links or it's overwhelmed by the status quo making the AFF a prerequisite. The Williams evidence card says nuclear weapons are bad. 1EC agrees. It says we should not rely on nuclear deterrence via China and should prioritize conventional deterrence. Liberal hegemony is the best system for combating racial equality. Begetting and makes it inevitable. Snyder 23 has become here the racism in the center. Liberal policy not going by IR as a basis for slavery empire. The product of the U.S. order. The arguments and liberals and shed more light in national politics. A liberal society change the reason race abandon the view of a difference as biological incentive since course talk about structural inequality and the race under the right by taking a step towards solving the problems of Taiwan puts weapons. What American gets not tied by the politician of breakdown of the side view as include Chinese and Taiwan. Japan is so about power and the scribble for Africa was more strategic in that position that now it's not about racial exploitation. The theory was a contest to determine why greatest could get the richest misses the point that power Germany may capture the main story. The racism of powers is irrelevant but not the primary cause. Cut at the primary cause. The Agathangel evidence 1 decline turns the thesis of imperialism brands 20 just as you was thought on enriching during the Cold War may again in the record of China during the Cold War. CIA will continue to stabilize or replace governments slipping into the Soviet and the US to do it gratuitously. Washington resorted to cover action to believe the balance was fragile in the end. US needed affordable methods of competing. The officials no longer assume inevitable emergence of democratic world. Competition with China is by Washington might desperately seek covert options to prevent countries in the Africa, Middle East, Asia from aligning with Asian competition. Takes up country they say that annexation leads by US supported. Some decent regime the Indian central left ones involved with wherever the recent power with unappealing choices. And the US is more likely to be decolonial, anti-imperial in its presence. Student I could bear 15 seconds of characterization by many of the US as imperial and an empire. The US is not an empire but anti-imperial. The whiff against the waves of empire building the US played anti-colonial roles each wave. The US has about independence of European settler colonies with the Monroe Doctrine helped saying independence can happen so you recolonize the Americas and not established. And the empire approach the colonization fits under breakup of empire supporting imperial projects in Germany, Japan, Italy, the US inspired anti-colonial independence movements and liberation doctrines violence is catered to damage complex MDs clearly provide evidence for our claim if it does result in global presence that engagement is voluntary and liberally beneficial partner countries can not just hegemony focus on conflict in cases where the peacefully based on the countless studies on Iraq and contrast to of countries where the US maintained a large bases such as Korea, Turkey, Quad, the Turkey could accept the term imperial, the term imperial in the US world because of the past all the voluntary alliances the criticism hold evidence that domination should be easy here. Critique fossil power countries have hosted troops they go in the fastest have experience decline the mortality increase longevity mark the Carter longevity the separatum evidence critique for the sake of manufacturing trenches the liberal institutions which is the Vickers caught in the framework self alliance systems are good. We insert the theories of imperialism above and the Agathangel link. The other card we just read is also that the Richie stuff is wrong. Conventional shift is good. We've impacted our nuclear deterrence is unstable because of preemptive Chinese loss means it tried or data shift resolve the case stuff. Oberg is also wrong. We won. We impact on our thesis level. Military spending is good insofar as it acts as effective deterrent against aggressive Chinese posture in the SDS too, but we don't link to counterterrorism policing offense. The militarism the app does not spill out to the Carswell Strait and it does it. Third, the offense is not unique. The entire Oberg article is talking about current posture of U.S. militarism, meaning that wars it's not unique. Best we centralize planning to militarize the SDS, which takes focus away from the bad form of training that Oberg indicts. The second Agathangel card does not make a coherent argument. One, laundry list forms of discrimination does not logically connect those modalities of IR, reject the polarizing scholarship, prefer our case-specific defense of international relations. Second, the world is getting better, meaning the impact of the imperial state is statistically decreasing. 3, even if not necessary. In this instance, which is good, the material evidence is wrong. Chinese behavior is nuanced. That was above on case, but our explanation of China is correct. They're an offensive realist because G is done biting his time. Rap Hoover, 20, China's forward policy fundamental China imbued in person token nationally when they feel go forward press may be in the middle of the policy rethinking on past seats. We saw the table see environment sees opportunity without backlash, Beijing reason I can reveal so much caution. The restricting has one of the ways so China stepped under control near this on conquers to double down. The SES conducted reconnaissance in New Taiwan get up they can dispute with Vietnam. But it broke deadly conflict with India. They knew laws that strip completely status like the law couldn't take Chinese or Kurdish school, but they can shift their China tradition the defensive concept of the summer to making him listen to himself without advisor free choice and the voice of pitching and the other that to have been the one to sway them. from being ahead. The alternative one case makes it solvency impossible. A, hedge pursuit is nettle, right? 21 trade lives of order. 7 out of 10, I believe, maintain this for make USA currently quarter clean alliances, could reduce the percent water, make it compare China would pay. And if every trade and allies objected the vodka would grow, result in cause that the U.S. House labor gets reduced, so you're not certainty miscalculation by Washington. Second, Chinese liberals will make some alternative impossible hung. 20 to make state to see Beijing as a progressive force to ally Beijing forward too. Just as the U.S. has under itself from its violence, injustice, brutality in the U.S. Horrific authorities are not using the protest they use to arrest and city legislative professors at law, assembly, pressure, university to fire employees, a pathetic lock of 1 million minorities in camp. These are retaining China. 3 alternatives that can't off more people than the AFF. It includes all government employees. Yeah, scratch that. Cool.
Sorry, I didn't catch the name of the last author.
The last author was Hung 20, which is like 2 dots.
So it's just the only card you did read was like the Robert. That's a cross. The only card you didn't read was the Robert one, right?
At the bottom, yes. I skipped some stuff up
that's
top.
Fine. Theoretical reasons for J16?
None.
Okay. Really funny. The Eikenberry card on case says that the United States has liberal ideas inspired from people like Gandhi. What ideas does the U.S. take from people like Gandhi?
I think you're actually reading that evidence backwards.
No, it quite literally says the idea that the United States is more than the country itself has stirred the world. The country's liberal ideas have inspired. Okay, actually, so how does the U.S. inspire Gandhi?
The evidence is the idea that promoting liberal democracy and liberal values like independence, freedom, rights, etc., has motivated independence movements broadly.
Okay,
things
so
like Gandhi, etc., to demand those
things.
things.
Gandhi would agree with the United States or the AFF.
Gandhi would demand with liberal ideas like rights, freedom, etc., which was central to the movement. That's the argument.
What about that is fundamentally like Western?
Right.
We have identified that the United States' commitment to the liberal order continues
and
liberal
it says,
democracy
it
and
says,
liberal
like,
values.
Then after that, it says that the United States has inspired Nelson Mandela. How has the United States inspired Nelson Mandela?
Okay. I'm going to give you the same answer because it is the same answer. The argument that the evidence is making is that relying on democratic values is good.
I want to talk about the Vickers evidence, right? It says, however, if we seek to combat oppression in the educational sphere, it's incumbent on us to pick on our enemies. The United States picks on its enemies all the time. Why is this not?
This is not what the Vickers evidence says.
I'm drawing lines.
You're drawing a line, but you're like drawing lines out of context to make an argument that's not applicable to the evidence.
What's the context?
The card is saying that critiquing the Western hegemony as like violent or bad seeds into what Beijing, China wants to do, which is to use that critique to motivate its actions. That is combined with the Hung card, which is the last card I read, that says that is how China uses it to justify their autocratic and liberal actions.
Other card I want to talk about that I think is really funny is this like Dooney and like Eikenberry evidence, right? It says like the U.S. is pro-colonization or decolonization, right? The only example it gives is like the U.S. is pro-European decolonization. Does it support any other decolonization?
We have identified that is an example of the U.S. being anti-imperial. We think
so
that is a sufficient example.
White nations, right? What nations of color does the U.S. support for colonization when it's on stolen land right now?
I think the evidence. I think you're massively like misarticulating the evidence. It is the idea that is resolved instances of colonial violence.
Give me a line for this piece of evidence that says the U.S. supports decolonial movements that are not just Europe.
Well, it also says that it stops imperial projects like Germany, Japan, and Italy, which is the second part of the argument, which is like we are decolonial firstly, but secondly we are stopping colonialism.
Diego has a question.
Just to make sure, you didn't make a permutation.
Yeah, we did say perm do both.
You said
perm do both, but it was like really.
Yeah, it was
okay. So it was a blip in.
Yeah, it's 6 seconds. It's fine. Yeah. 10. Which card do you want, Roger? Card do you want?
I don't know what that is.
I don't know. You don't need to exactly understood the one that should be response that's really.
Yeah.
Yeah, start doing that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sit straight down.
Yeah.
There are like parts of the case where obviously like answering the critique. So I'll signpost when I'm like answering certain things. Did y'all get the document? Yeah.
Case region.
I think this overview is gonna be like 30 seconds max. But then after that, it's just like the thing.
I'm just gonna earn the last round eating them.
What's up?
Just get it on the shade.
You do you, I close right down.
Thanks, last words.
Paris is good. They're good. Everybody else good. Okay.
Sovereignty and abject investments into legal domains have made perma-crisis existential. In order for the nuclear order to exist, black and indigenous bodies must be marked as outside security politics. In order for the international order to go here until meaning extinction is not in an event in the future, but a process. Perma-crisis is unsustainable and culminates in global annihilation because the battles to recohere nation states that outweighs time for happening now. Police brutality, disproportionate pollution, supporting genocide across the globe, inflation, food, insecurity, energy crisis. Ukraine and Israel have all more turning points that we need to understand through the lens of sovereignty. Nothing about the tweets he responded to the fundamental thesis claim about the accidental 24 evidence about sovereignty being the driving cause behind conflict, which turns haze their ability to say case outweighs relies on you to justify American hegemony of a vague threats that we will impact her through the strategy that now before I go to the framework, there's SCAR 18 evidence that read on case says that we should stop pretending to be asleep with genocide happening now. We will concede that genocide frame the way you think this matters. Indigenous extraction and its recovered nuclear arsenals. Enslavement of black people is required for nuclear arsenal as per the Williams evidence, which means genocide is an ongoing condition, which means you should refuse executing in the future and instead consider the link debate first. Framework interpretation that the winning sees of research object whose epistemology should be scrutinized through a hermeneutic and suspicion that never benefits demythologizing IR awareness in IR studies, i.e. if we win any link that they support a theory of IR that rests on the genocide of black and indigenous people, then you should vote negative. First, our interpretation is more fair, absence of infinite prayer, which means they should be prepared to defend their justification. Second, their notion of fairness is racist because it is designed to preserve a white supremacist world as per the Williams evidence that they conceded. Third, clash and education debates over justification are full of clash of force and affirmative and the psychological impulse behind their advocacies, which is necessary to deconstruct how white supremacy enforces our subjectivity. Teams can choose predictable IR perspectives like offensive versus defensive realism, critique versus neoclassical realism. Epistemology debates come first and shape the way we think about IR because it shapes the policies, the actions we take after, which takes out the reps don't shape reality card. Fiat is bad in ballot proximity. Your ballot can't pass the plan, but it can make a judgment on whether or not the pedagogical reading of it is valuable. Fiat is an affective formula militarized in the mind that is bad because it reproduces the conditions of scenario planning that produce war in the first place, which is the Oberg evidence that we read. And on case, I'm going to answer all of their arguments first because they just did a card of hedge good. Their first argument was IR is inevitable that they said on case. Our argument is that we have the agency to stop it here, which is the ballot proximity. The argument after that on the critique, they said rep sheet reality. The card is bad. It's highlighted like 2 sentences long, but this is an IR or competing IR perspective debate, which means it should take it out. They said scholarship focus bad. Our argument is that the alternative makes it better because it leads to refinement over time and leads to better solutions like the alternative. Epistemic purity is bad argument. You should stop pathologizing movements on the ground. This card does not assume the alternative we have read, which does result in material action. They say that the AFF is prerequisite. No, the links will turn under case the Snyder 23 evidence. Skip it. The one who is going to answer it. The first argument against the academic argument. Their card, the cards that they read don't disprove anything because the sovereignty thesis that they fundamentally conceded. The U.S. is not likely to be more decolonial because they are currently supporting genocide in Palestine right now, which shows that the U.S. is actively evolving in its genocidal lens. Every example of Western intervention being good is an example of interest convergence, i.e. aid to Ukraine. The EU should be contrasted with reasons why they don't give aid to interventions going on in Palestine. It is because Ukraine is a white ethnicity, which means that the form of interventions that they justify are uniquely bad. They say military planning is good. The offense is not non-unique. Winning a fear part means that they have Africanly justified genocide. Their second, the answer to the second accidental argument was that the world is getting better. Zero war in the 2AC, which means you should disregard it. But our arguments are specific to black and indigenous people. They say Xi is biding his time. We have impacts are placing judgments. And it's on China in this space. They say hedge pursuit inevitable. Our argument is that is the ballot proximity argument. You can stop Kansas is from being racist in this space. U.S. comparative arguments. No. The argument in saying that China uses our criticisms to justify attacking the U.S. is racist as hell. It is the replication of Red Scare logics where every black protester is seen as a communist, so people get thrown in jail or killed through things like COINTELPRO or it justifies using the military against movements on the ground. You should reject the team for it because it actively justifies violence in the way that they articulate our arguments. The theory arguments we are not fiating anything, so you shouldn't let them get away with both the theory arguments. Either way, it happened after the timer, so rejected the permutation first. Definitely because it did say the turns case. Second is that NFU is counterinsurgency. Cross-applied the adjacent between two evidence. It says that NFU definitely stalls revolutionary politics because it colludes with warhawks to leave nuclear forces intact or substitutes them for other ones like hypersonics as per the 1AC, which is built off of prison labor and resources off of the extraction of stolen land, i.e. simple Google search shows that the people who create hypersonic weapon systems like Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin are all relying on prison labor, which obviously relies on the false incrimination of mass groups of black and indigenous people, which means it's an argument you should fundamentally reject. I answered all the line-by-line arguments and skipped the ones that the webinar is going to cover. I'm now going to do the link that we first extend the hegemonic anti-nuclearism. This had Richie 22 says that the opposite form of hegemonic anti-nuclearism. This in which they just shift the mythos of nuclear weapons back down to conventional ones, which leaves critiques of imperialism absent and result in more instability. They cause a transition to the third nuclear age through strategic non-nuclear weapons. The U.S. policy changes managed the nuclear technology increase over speed devoted to new technology. Second generation nuclear episode technology. The U.S. armed forces and the play to find a robot as genuine exciting possibility at some point in the future that turns nuclear instability fodder. Earth 21 calls for transfer status that's such an attack is the emergency capabilities of writing the means of defending against or attacking adversary nuclear systems using clue cyber attacks. The USS began planning for the use of cyber attack capabilities against enemy missile and nuclear systems as part of a full spectrum missile defense or left-to-launch program. The races during and every escalation miscalculation increase the risk of nuclear use as a straight decision-making and threat perceptions. Their Co-19 evidence is a link here. It says that the only rationale for hypersonics not being as destabilizing as nukes is that China and the US are both developing them, so they obviously wouldn't use them against each other, which is the exact same mythos behind nukes right now, i.e. China and the US are both modernizing the nuclear arsenal, so they wouldn't use them against each other. Our argument is that it's the exact same mythos that creates the need for NFU in the first place, which means the AFF policy in the future. They inserted rehighlighting, so I get to do the same. The 1AC Bond 21 evidence is also double turned. Their own evidence says that we need to decrease reliance on nuclear weapons, and then their own solvency advocate says that we should extend the nuclear ability to Taiwan. It also says to stop being cooperative with China, but the above evidence says that we need a more cooperative approach, which shows the example of hegemonic anti-nuclearism. This said in which they collude with warhawks that fundamentally turn the case because they can't get their politics right in the first place. The next thing I'm going to extend is techno-orientalism. It is a faulty method of the Western of the West gaze looking at the mirror gazing in on itself. Think of the destabilizing imagery that says that China is getting more illiberal, or that they will potentially break their NFU, but they expect us to believe that the U.S. will never break its own NFU if the effort to pass. That is not a neutral defense of U.S. legitimacy or durable fiat. It is a racialized one hidden in a strategic orientalism in which the arms control of U.S. policy is upheld, while the NFU in the hands of China is seen as unruly unless the U.S. can control it first. The 1AC fear of China rolling back their NFU is actually the fear of China mimicking imperial U.S. behavior across the globe that causes reductions in arms control post-staff, which means you energize warhawks and uniquely cause more destabilization. 1AC Wang 19 is an example of this. It says that war won't happen because of China. Instead, it says that war will happen because the U.S. is motivated to not give up. That is a unique consequence of the affirmative, because it says that the United States has to fight this desperate war, because if not, America's global position and way of life would all fall apart. Our argument is that is a unique form of mobilizing rhetoric that causes the plan to be rolled back in the future. Thirdly, I'm going to extend is the realism link. The realized assumptions are epistemically bankrupt and requires the erasure of ongoing violence that structures the LIO and countless power theories that they legitimize. The car talks about how in order for the logic of realism to exist, i.e. an idea of anarchic states always fighting for sovereignty, you first had to justify the enslavement of African people and the extraction of indigenous land. They read a couple of Eikenberry cards and they have dropped that this specific card specifically cites Eikenberry and concedes that, quote, liberals have colluded with colonialism, imperialism, slavery, racism, sexism, which means in order for you to vote AFF, you would have to justify a history of all these things that have led to genocide in the first place. The weakness of the global liberal order and the club are constituted off of imperial and colonial practices that require things like ongoing genocide in the Congo. The one in our would be clear of all the examples of genocide they justify erasing as a result, which means in order for them to win this debate, they need to justify interventions in the global south. Now, after that, I'll extend the alternative. Security breach functions on multiple levels. One, a link is sufficient to vote negative because the burden of the negative is to negate the app, not solve it in debate. Second is that refusal is generative. Ballot proximity means abolishing the winning seats. IR studies repositions are focused to create debates about abolition, liberation strategies that train people to argue for politics on the ground like BLM, I don't know more, etc., which is the 1NC Munch on the 21 evidence, but materially it also solves the app. One, the reason sovereignty is at war is because of compounding militarism. Divesting signals to China that we do more than just NFU. We are willing to transform the world itself. It makes black and indigenous temporalities possible because it locates our demands within themselves and not the LIO. Second is that any alternative / co-option fails. This argument that was read on case like disarm fails. We know the state will rebel. We know that technocratic legal constraints might make this impossible, but it is a struggle that you should take up in its lofty demands because it is the only ethic one you can take that outweighs
because their terrain of activism devolves down to fascism that turns case. 20 seconds. Well,
We're gonna keep talking.
Yeah.
what do you think?
No, I said you talking, bro. I got the press, bro. What can do?
I mean, I think you should frame all of their Eikenberry cards through the fact that our evidence cites Eikenberry himself, conceding that in order to justify the LIO, you have to justify genocide ongoing. Their Scar 18 evidence says prioritize genocide.
Cool. Okay.
So doing.
Cool. Overview, you conceded the Scary evidence that says that we are culpable and complicit in a genocide that is, quote, standing in the wings waiting to happen. The context of this genocide is not like ongoing imperial violence, but the idea of a nuclear conflict that could happen.
I know.
Are you conceding that nuclear conflict is bad?
We think that the frame of genocide should frame the way you think about this debate. The reason Scary thinks nuclear war is important to prioritize is because they see it as a potential genocide of people. Our argument is that if you really care about genocide, you would care about the genocide that's going on right now and how it's a result of you defending U.S. genocide.
So genocide should matter. If we win that nuclear war, are the effects of that is a form of genocide? Does it mean the AFF also accesses that frame?
No.
Okay, why?
Nuclear war is not a genocide. Genocide is the direct and perpetual for sure, the purpose of genocide is to exterminate a particular group of people for a particular purpose, right?
Okay.
White people will never face genocide from a nuclear war because nuclear war is not targeted towards white people. Genocide happens right now because in order for the U.S. LIO to exist, you require extraction of indigenous land, enslavement of African people, and you also require them to be labeled as communists because, like you said, if you criticize the U.S., China will use it against us. That's some racist-ass rhetoric that justifies genocide in the status quo. It's not fine. It's horrible what you did.
Gotcha. The framework debate, fiat is bad. If we win that, talking about our AFF separate from, the implementation is good, does that make the fiat stuff irrelevant?
No.
No. Why?
Because our argument is that your faith in the system to, enforce itself in good faith is always something that is ahistorical. The U.S. would not enforce its NFU because, for example, the conventional shift that shows that you would place that mythos onto other places. So NFU becomes an alibi to say, look, U.S. is acting in good faith, but in reality, we're going to go bomb China with hypersonic missiles instead. Nothing has actually changed. Aggression stays the same, right?
Okay, gotcha.
But also, politicians would roll back NFU. We have people in Congress who think
okay, the transition to, nuclear, non-nuclear strategic weapons, this, Futter and Zolla card, it's the U.S. has already begun cyber attacks. Seems like a non-unique claim. What evidence do you think is right that the AFF would result in cyber attacks?
The argument is not that you result in more hypersonic weapons. The argument is that you result in an increased reliance on hypersonic weapons.
I mean, this evidence isn't about hypersonics. It's about cyber attacks to try to espionage.
It's about strategic non-nuclear weapons. It gives the example of BNDs, but it obviously includes hypersonics as well because it's talking about a broad age of the third nuclear age, where we see the nuclear not in the actual nuclear weapon, but in non-nuclear weapons.
Okay.
It's the mythos argument. You do nothing to change the status quo.
Okay. Alt solves the AFF. What was the warrant for that? I missed it.
The reason China wants the U.S. to reciprocate the NFU is because it wants a more peaceful world order. Our argument is that abolitionists on the ground are more true to that principle than the U.S.
Cool.
So we would result in better cooperation outside of the LA.
I'm sending it. It's just one re-highlight. It should be sent. Did everybody receive it yet?
I just got it.
Okay, good. And I'll give everybody the order.
I'm good for now.
Okay. The order is gonna be the critique first. So I'm doing more like the theory of power stuff. Then it'll be a lot of line by line, like the 2AC critique cards. And then it'll be case.
grapple with an affirmative ballot. Nuclear weapons are an extension of slavery. That's what Williams ever think about the way to enslaved in Africa are forced into unsafe working conditions and low wages and debt to being exploited to mine uranium to build nuclear bombs for China and the United States, meaning that nuclear weapons and their violation is only possible through black death and the slave. Negative slavery, morphs not and, I mean, ontology will turn the case just how slavery don't morph into Jim Crow post-AFF. Even if they win that somehow, the way he stopped modernization of nuclear, where uranium, the U.S. only ships exploiting African labor to make more conventional weapons, i.e. drones, hypersonic, etc., which still require the deaths of Africans via unsafe working environments and increases regional instability that leads to proxy wars in other regions. That turns case, I will do impact calculus here, one impact calculus for every soul. That's an unethical to live in a world full of racial violence. Justifying a fiat world post-AFF means that you have to justify the continued metaphysical enslavement, which is a form of violence that their impacts not grapple with one time frame, full of negative because black lives have been trapped within slavery since the beginning, which was day one, but also B is magnitude full of negative because gratuitous violence is gratuitous for a reason. It happens all the time at high levels rapidly. No reason means that extinction will be non-unique with the answers. They're backing up re-highlighting, but also probability for negative because I have a way more of a chance to get shot with a bullet more than a nuclear weapon. I will do judge instruction here, the role of judge and reject anti-black and that every fucking turn existed of civil society is one that creates violence at the level of nuclear colonialism and social death. Nuclear weapons only possible due to the enslavement of black community that we are the only one rejecting those logic and that the only way you can resolve nuclear warfare, anti-black warfare also frame the debate through of other free framing issues. One, addressing anti-black violence comes from any of the one they see impact because black bodies face social death, which is a grammar suffering that cannot be grappled with the potential nuclear war because black bodies live to die over and over again, which means that social death that weighs on a physical level requires sacrificing black life for others. And also ontology will turn all often which the work I did above, go to the line by line now. One, I'm gonna impact on the designer evidence because it's gonna lose in the debate. The entire card is capped. Any misdiagnosis win means that you should reject the app because it proves that we created a epistemological error because anti-blackness and cause serious policy faker and make more activists. The first one, I'm gonna example I did was says that Taiwan pits white America against the non-white China. Them saying the US is not white because they embrace Asian countries is wrong. It's a way to exploit them. The geopolitical tactics in line with Asian countries to maintain US heads and reason and exploit and dominate Asian culture and only assimilate them into Western ideology. The next part said that scramble Africa was not about racial exploitation, which is absolute bullshit. This is the incentive that was created. The incentive was created due to the international slave trade, which they were able to use to monopolize lines to carve up Africa, the colonial powers. You ask yourself on the panel, why did they not do that shit in Europe or other white places to continue exploitation in Africa still happening, i.e. they give structural programs in order to give them loans, but it forced them to not pay them back to prove that uphold racial capitalism and cut deals with leaders to gain millions through economic gains. Also, the AFF is only an attempt to continue Western culture and exploitation through the partnership with China and the US. The status quo is bad right now, but the AFF makes it worse because working together with the China and the US makes African exploitation impossible to stop through unfair labor practices. It requires literally works Africans to death to destroy their culture. It means that liberalism is this guide for African genocide, which should impact on any argument they go for why liberalism is good. The next example they gave was that it was not the next cap card. The next example they gave is really cap. It says that the power of Germany captured the main theory of racism and proves that's not the primary cause. But this example demystifies the racial violence they cause, i.e. the exploitation of black workers and black soldiers in the World War. And the World War proves that they cannot fail. They fail to articulate the reason why the impact happened in the first place, which proves our argument. Also, the next line says mainstream commentators and liberals in democracy, the overly abandoned right racialized discourse is absolutely not true. CRT banned Biden State of the Union where he called undocumented immigrants illegals. Trump called people aliens, referring to Hamas as terrorists, and Ronald Reagan using the trouble with the welfare queen and calling people crack babies. It proves that there definitely is racialized discourse in liberal societies now. The next argument they get, or next example they give is that imperialists abandoned biological racial ideology entirely. They still use the status quo, still use blood quantum eugenics and denial of birthrights, and Henry relax all proves his arguments are on the neck that we highlight the durability social structures for non-people put them at disadvantage. This centralization is wrong because it puts racism as an individual. Our issue not in the structural one, which is definitely wrong. We hear the explanation I did above. The next line says that liberal states offer prospect for effective leadership for inclusive multicultural coalition and human rights. It's not true because liberal states profit off of useless states, i.e. the way that they support totalitarian countries to prove that they cannot go for this argument. They also said that the U.S. is inclusive for reform and decolonization. You actually what decolonization happens, so on, so indigenous land in the United States still exists. Proves that any argument I win proves it should be impact on any form of offer they're going to go for. The next vigorous evidence, the piece of framing is a double turn with their this piece of evidence is a double turn with the framing, i.e. the 2AC. The second line said that we shouldn't pick our enemy, but the 1AC is F-log frame, so we have to stop time for being revisions prove that you do pick on people. The exchange with dope with evidence, military veterans, and solve the alternative because it's the only way to stop end this war, which was the 2AC. The breadth evidence is definitely wrong. U.S. definitely does find gratuitously was the evidence I did above. Also, the linear I can bear evidence card is about European white decolonization, not about indigenous black or brown liberation or decolonization. Proves out their power to prove that the U.S. will decolonize white nation states over colonize others, which prove they reinforce racial violence. Also, evidence impact turn, golden imperial call which is an example I did above. The Kane Evidence Act, inequality equality for who also impact turn by arguments above. Modern evidence hedges bad and when sees enactment of good global citizen and seeks to maintain the oppressive structural condition of the community of the structural condition of the United States as a sovereign entity in exchange for adopting a no-for-use policy. The plan acts as a justification to continue war crimes across the globe, such as broadening aid to Israel, Palestinian genocide, crash for the anti-black in the Congo, etc., which prove that the turn case make conflict more likely because secret and insidious actions part moral global conflict across the globe, i.e. secret military coups, surveillance, etc., which is larger. Internal link for nuclear posture. Go to case now. What I'm going to do the line. They say nuclear war is happening now, but that's disproven by the China evidence we gave that says that China doesn't want to go to nuclear war now. There's no risk. We prove that there's no inherency for the impacts. Also, our cards are way newer. That you should prefer those because ours are more recent. Also, they say liberal order the impact turned out above. The next argument was that that liberalism is failing now, but liberal order makes violence more likely per the 2NC the explanation above. They say RR sorry for inevitable, but the alternative swap that they say China is realism and revisionist. The country answer this. The re-highlighting is definitely wrong. They said theories of extinction races, not just nuclear war itself, proves that any link to the out probably will impact turn any re-highlighting they're going to go for. They say that not stopping nuclear war into genocide, one nuclear war is not happening in status quo, which proves that they don't get access to this impact, but also the after installment because of the evidence I did above, because they re-entrench the violence. The next argument they said was that this stop second strike. No, it doesn't. They say refuge not shape reality. That was definitely the 2NC framework page. You cross by here. They say U.S. liberalism is good, like impact turn to the above, and they say that NFU, that China wants NFU voting after is definitely good because Fiat's not real. The background for how they did the bill, I can bury evidence. It's obviously not about Gandhi or Nelson Mandela because why the fuck would Nelson Mandela be like, yay, United States?
920.
Okay, I'm just gonna do it under the links on top of the alt. Do you want more prep or do you want me to do it? Yeah, I'm just gonna redo a lot of this. So we're fine.
How are you feeling about your last NDT? That's fair.
I don't know. I really don't know. I feel like a lot of times people describe this thing as like, oh no, I didn't want it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's fair.
Not like early, you know. Yeah. But I'm just like,
don't quote me in the elims. Don't quote us in the elims.
I'm just like, I'm excited for it to be over after tomorrow. You know.
Hope it's a very successful one.
You have so many better stickers than TSC.
Yeah, I'm talking about like my competitor.
Case the K. There is not a doc.
You said case K?
Yeah. And then I think like a lot of the case, like reps, don't shape reality, LAO good stuff will be like wherever it was on the K in the block. Not very much in the case. Okay.
Sorry, I just have to get my.
You're good. Others are good. Sick. Current U.S. nuclear posture is unsustainable. Either conventional nuclear entanglement ensures conflict, or U.S. restraints because they fear nuclear conflict. There are two impacts that are dropped by the bloc. First is nuclear war. China is going to preemptively launch miscalculation, makes it certain and inevitable. That escalates, goes global, and causes extinction, justifying the evidence. Second is the liberal order. This was dropped and outweighs all of the case and all of the arguments about why the U.S. liberal order is bad. U.S. restraint gives China an opening to establish an illiberal and autocratic sphere of influence, collapsing U.S. influence into an slew of extinction that causes global war. It causes global war, meaning lack of AI regulations, which is directly and market evidence. Meaning the risk of an impact means the AFF acts as an impact turn the link liberalism is collapsing now, replacing illiberal balance with the turns the K absent a solution to the international system. The first argument was the Scary Indictment. No, Scary Indictment does not say genocide framing in the status quo, but rather that a nuclear war would be bad. It is a link turn not for us, not for them, but for us. The next argument is that China does not want war in the status quo. The argument is U.S. conventional entanglement will cause war, but yes, they do. They've conceded two pieces of evidence saying that conventional entanglement causes them to misperceive U.S. conventional strikes, or that the U.S. will just conventional strike first, which the plan solves. Next was that LAO causes war cards. This will be answered on the K, but they've conceded
the cooperation impact, which means that the LAO is key to cooperate with other global actors, which outweighs the K. Finally, they said that war is happening in the status quo, that war and genocide are happening in the status quo, which we answered on the K. Go there now. 2AC1 is framework. The ballot ought to be simply a question of the consequences of the plan. Links must be the implementation and the almost resolved. And the first impact is fairness. The model lowers the bar for a negative win condition and shifts the goalpost from if the AFF is a good idea to infinitely arbitrary flames that boil down until you link, you lose. Outweighs. Debate is a competitive fairness ensures equal access to both sides. They're invested in the game as well, which makes it try or die to the same. And the first argument is that we just have to justify the AFF. They have zeroed the AFF with any link, which means that it makes it unfair and unpredictable. The second argument is that the AFF is racist. We have impact turn the links, which means that we are not racist, but we will win that the LIO is good. The next impact is education. A comparison of opportunity cost makes a deliberate lack of value absent applications since liberalism and consequentialism are inevitable, which is conceded in the block. That means two things. A, fiat is good. The plan does not have to happen, but debating over the implementations of the plan allows a testing of political strategy that jumpstarts radical advocacy. B, we have impact turn scholarship only focused. Our framework interpretation reproduces U.S. centrism. Liberalism is not just an intervention in violence, but presuming it denies nations dependent on the order, stability, development, and peace, which is the NEG evidence claiming these models as epistemically pure is simple passivity in the face of China's violent rise. The important framing issue for the bloc is they had a lot of reasons why the U.S. rise is bad, or the U.S. in the past have been bad, but have not made an argument for why China's rise is good or why we should let it happen, rather than rejecting universal political values as the simple objectives of liberalism being violent, which feeds into China's messaging and allows them to undermine the liberal order, working to retool the order as a system to challenge violence at best, which is the vicar's evidence. The first argument is that the policy is bad. Policy debating is good, as we will win on the IR link. The second is the fiat bad argument. We have to consider our education is good because it creates better scholars that are able to debate the implications of the AFF. The implications of the AFF. The sovereignty link Agatha Angelou stuff is incorrect. One, the United States has been better for the international order in the status quo because we are becoming more liberal and doing good things like cooperation with countries, which means that there's no genocide in the status quo. Second, that genocide is obviously non-unique and not implicated by the plan because the genocide all of their links are talking about is in the status quo. Thirdly, they have conceded that China's rise is worse because they will create more genocide and become an illiberal actor. There is no NFU rollback. This argument is ridiculous and does not account for durable fiat. That we have durable fiat that the plan will go into implementation and will always happen, which means they do not get to win that it rolls back. They said reject the team for anti-blackness and that the role of the judge is that reject anti-blackness. One, this is infinitely arbitrary and it boils down to you link to lose, which is the framework stuff. Second, we will win a link to we will win an impact turns to the link and prove that IR is not anti-black. Finally, the impact framing stuff on the Agatha Angelou stuff. Group the first argument, which is ethics, enslavement. China is worse, which will be below. Second, the time frame argument is the time frame and magnitude arguments are incorrect because war is inevitable in the status quo. The Ritchie link is incorrect. The conventional shift stuff we have impact turn because it is the only way to deter China. The two fodder pieces of evidence are incorrect because deterrence theory on case means that hypersonics will be stabilizing, but they do turn their framework arguments because Feder is a nuclear scholar talking about things. There's no argument for why conventional shift might not cause discrimination against black people. Adopting the NFU require consolidation and redirection of our conventional forces toward China. Allowing a U.S.-led order means less weapons on the ground, and the U.S. has to do anything in the South. Anything else is not unique and cannot be resolved under China hegemony. The second link is techno-orientalism. This link is incorrect because they have conceded the thesis of China bad. I do not know how they can win this link. It is not an incorrect representation or labeling them as the Red Scare or communist because they have conceded that they're doing bad and illiberal things in the status quo. Finally, the last link is illiberalism, which will be answered right here. IR does not say that when centered on a broad liberal values is right. It prioritizes democratic freedom and cooperation that challenges instances of violence. That block was great on critiquing and identifying examples of bad things that have happened, but consistently conceded that liberal values can generate both on the external question of the U.S. and the alternative is infinitely worse than that. They said that nuclear weapons protection causes extractive violence. This is not a reason the AFF is bad. Two reasons. A, the AFF said to shift away from reliance and protection on nuclear weapons. The block has not articulated a reason why we result in more extraction. B, this belies the idea that China is not complicit in worse forms of extraction and violence and genocide. China equally develops and extracts resources, but their drive for global influence, they would magnify that, which would link China even if the status quo is bad. The alternative is worse. Nuclear violence outweighs and is a unique instantation of violence that is ignored and constantly pushed back against, which indiscriminately kills billions. Massive death is irreversible. The nuclear war is not genocide stuff from cross-sex is now nonsense. It is not, even if it is not discriminate, it still kills mass amounts of people that intentionally kills billions. The Snyder Index is incorrect with the thesis going so blood. A, illiberal values to separate the U.S. can create progress or change, and B, China is worse, which is above. The alternative hedge is inevitable. That is conceded. Nations will inevitably cling to power and decline, resulting in oscillating for interventions. The first argument is power grabs with the U.S. and China will continue to try and grab it. Second is disengagement deep. Engagement in the state and grand value strategies are restraining of storm collapsing, which is the Beckley evidence. China illiberalism means that any alternative sovereignty starts at zero. China overwhelming cracks down on protests, assembly, and other backlash towards illiberal dominance, which is the hung evidence cannot resolve the F.
It was 8:20, right? Does that sound right? Did I write that? I think I wrote it down. 8:38.
It's gonna take me a second.
You have to add every single one.
Yes.
At least it wasn't like 8:57 or something. That would have.
8. Wait, is 8:30 or 50?
8:30.
Okay, 8:30 is 8 starting now.
Time isn't linear, bro.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. You know, I was just saying, how did you set like an 8-minute timer and like still ain't get back for a prep zone?
Well, it was like 8:30, 8:40.
That's true. I just thought your aim was like, I'm not gonna criticize you because I'm late to everything. So.
The real answer is that I had to pee. Get off my.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. I made an assumption like that.
Turn my name up.
I'll talk to mama.
Always.
Caitlin, please.
The 1AC inevitably fails because it seeks to solve extinction through the same system responsible for existential conditions in the first place. Battles over sovereignty like US-China hedge inevitably result in extinction because it motivates the capitalist desire to become the most dominant sovereign state that requires constant extraction from indigenous people and enslavement of black people because the drive for nukes requires minerals, the drive for hypersonics requires prison labor, the drive for a Western alliance system requires the demonization of anybody non-West, like bombing the Middle East and supporting genocide in Palestine while always seeking to save white ethnic minorities like Ukraine. These are all examples that are coming out of the 2NC and means that you should flow the Acadangelo sovereignty theory of power through security dilemmas. Increasing climate change time proves that our time for extinction is happening right now because of police brutality, disproportionate pollution, supporting genocide and across the globe, inflation, food insecurity, energy crisis all show that Western sovereignty frames extinction as an event in the future because they justify the extinction of everybody not included. The 2ER cannot go for impact non-unique because they have defended realism as a study of IR that all of our evidence has impact turned to that reading because of what it has justified, what it will continue to justify, and what it can never escape accountability from. You can't vote in extinction outweighs because to vote on that you will need to cause the extinction for non-white people. That is the silent genocide. They promote that you should refuse who's to be culpable in framework. Orange prediction is that the Winnie Caesar research object whose epistemology should be scrutinized through a hermeneutic of suspicion. Any chance they replicated the theory of IR that mythologized widely said justifies genocide is a reason to reject the AFF. Only our model can refine IR over time to ensure that the theories we generate in the future don't require black and indigenous death. Demythologizing IR is good. One more fair, infinite prep, and the fact that this is a nuke topic and we're in a realism versus house of IR to be means if you can't defend your reps then your plan probably never makes sense in the first place. Orange prediction includes black indigenous people, which resolves our structural unfairness claims because their model of valuing waste like our claims is built on the idea that black and indigenous people shouldn't have a voice in debates about hegemony, which impact turns their desire for fair evaluation of the plan. We do not lower the bar for win condition. The issue of you is that you have chosen a racist theory and thought you could win. Second, our debate center clash with predictable IR like realism versus house of IR, offensive or defensive, all of which do shape reality, which is an argument continued coming out of the block. 3, ballot proximity. Your ballot can't pass the plan, but it can make a judgment on whether or not the study of the world is good and historical analysis is good, even if the plan doesn't cause genocide. The pedagogy they promote is what allows white people to get up in classrooms and station like, I won't take a stance on if the U.S. indulges in enslavement or fiat or the other stuff that I will extend later. Fiat is bad. IR is not inevitable. The 1 year argument had zero warrant. The ballot proximity argument means you have the power to refuse. There are indications of it. Debating the plan is not good for advocacy deals. Fiat is a form of militarizing the man because every time you imagine a scenario like the China hedge argument, it builds up anxiety and causes use in the first place. Oberg went and dropped China's right is bad argument. Yes, we agree, but for everything reason you think China is bad, the U.S. as well. Both extract from Africa. Both are racist. Both are putting the world in really messed mess the conditions. That is why we perform a security breach. You should refuse the current conditions why are in place in abolitionist utopian hope on bottom of politics because it scales up. The reason, etc. The Acadangelo Index 1, the U.S. has not been better for the international order. They said more liberal, more cooperation, zero warrants and zero specific examples. The 1 year was a bunch of grandstanding with zero examples. Do not let them recharacterize this in the 2 year. They gave zero policies, zero examples of interventions being good, zero examples of alliances resulting in a better world. Second, the non-unique argument. This is the example of how the excuse which happens. You whitewash history by saying it's in the past. No, conceding the scar evidence says that genocide should frame the way you think about the present. The Toro evidence in the 1 in our shows how you become a murderous creature, a subject where you position yourself in academic space as a good faith actor that silence the concerns of black and Asian people. Rollback is not a ridiculous argument. NFU is counterinsurgency. Drop actions. Evidence says that you collude with warlocks that would argue for us to get rid of NFU in the first place. You don't result in draw down of nuclear forces. You deny material harms. Your reformerism gets so watered down to the point where NFU becomes a non-factor and conventional weapons serve the same purpose, which are just as destabilizing. They have dropped the specific reason to reject the team. They did not respond to our actual example. Them saying that China will use our criticism to deflect U.S. to bolster their arguments against the U.S. is racist. It's the replication of Red Scare logic where every black protester is seen as communist, so people get thrown in jail. They just reject the argument, but didn't respond to the actual example. Every time they say China is worse than 1 ER, did not give any example. The only example they said was China cracks down on protests at the bottom of the 1 ER. The U.S. does that too, such as the BLM 2020 protest. This is not a who's the least / worst or / pick your oppressor debate. This is a debate that forces you to recognize this is not a forced choice. You can refuse to take a stance on longevity altogether and vote for security breach because it is the only ethical thing you can do as a result of their performance. The hegemonic anti-nuclearism argument first, it is not a double turn. The further evidence is in line with our critique because it is saying that the U.S. nuclear order is a false distinction. U.S. nuclear order and conventional are just the same exact things. Extend the hegemonic anti-nuclearism link, dropped every single re-highlight shows that they result in conventional shit where the only rationale for hypersonics not being destabilizing is that the China and U.S. are both developing them so they wouldn't use them. Is the same exact mythos behind nukes, such as China and U.S. are both developing nukes so they wouldn't use them against each other. It is the exact same mythos that creates the need for NFU in the first place, which means that they only shift the mythos back to nuclear weapons and cause zero possibility for 21. Both argue that this is just as destabilizing, which means they are not a shift from the status quo. They are a reproduction of it, resulting in inevitable extinction, which is the theory of power debate about realism link. IR is not based on democratic freedom or cooperation. We have taken quotes from their own Iconberry evidence and our own evidence that says where he has conceded that liberalism has required genocide. It is a reason the affirmative is bad. You do result in more extraction. You drop that conventional weapons like hypersonics cause prison labor and mass extraction of indigenous resources. Nuclear violence does not outweigh because the battle proximity argument means that they can't pass the plan, but they can make a value judgment. Alternative, they have dropped that the alternative solves the case. Small risk of a link means you vote negative first, versus that on an academic level, security breach solves first. The link is sufficient to vote negative because the burden of the negative was never to solve the app, only negate its desirability. Second is that refusal is generative. Ballot proximity means abolishing the winning seats. IR studies reposition our focus to create debates about abolition. Liberation checks that train people to argue for politics of the ground like BLM, I don't know more, etc., which means we lead to material spell. They drop the abolition struggle, solve the app. The reason sovereignty is at war is because of compounding militarism, which means that we signal to China that we do more than just reciprocate NFU. We are willing to transform the world itself, which is a conceded argument coming out of the 2NC. Any reason, any all fails argument. We remember, you know that the state will rebel, but it is up to you to take the struggle of lofty demands because it's the only one ethical one you can take in the face. It's a fascism. Go to case now. No U.S. nuclear war scenario in the absence of because they dropped the 2NC legal argument that war planning makes war hawks more likely to break NFUs because racialized society, which the outcome most returns the case. It is a conceded legal argument which proves that the rhetorical anxiety of the obvious state or policy makes the status quo worse. We obviously did not drop the LIO impact. We impact turned it as well as the first one.
345?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Correct. Which is like the framework stuff.
You have to get all the framework stuff.
Yep. Yeah, you go for that check.
Case K. Case K.
But I know it's simple. It's just the two letters sound case K.
Yeah, no. Two dropped frames that should frame your battle coming out of the 2-1. Drop the pursuit of illegal hegemony is inevitable. Absent even in the world of the alternative, we said the U.S. will still inevitably cling on the power and civil China causes power wars and re-entrenchment of all the violence, which makes the alternative insolvency impossible for both the AFF and the League, because it means that the U.S. will inevitably try to re-engage and re-cling on because they want to maintain power. The back of the evidence from the 2 ACs, the best card in the business, that the U.S. will always do that, even attempts to intervene or not to. It means they cannot win this solely on the refusal of it, because U.S. hegemony is an inevitable claim and an inevitable factor, which means that those violence are inevitable or made worse because of area invention, where there's a bunch of a multipolar war between the U.S. and China fighting. Second, liberal values can be separated and external from the U.S. violence. They cannot just win this fight alone on U.S. action being bad generally in the past when they have dropped that the U.S. promotes liberal values and democratic values like freedom and human rights, civil rights, etc. that are massively things that can be externalized from U.S. action, i.e. the fact they can be used to mobilize movements, freedom movements, etc. across the globe. Third, they have to frame their alternative through the world of what happens with China. They've dropped that China is the one that gets power as a result of the affirmative alternative. They cannot just win absent of the affirmative with the alternative. They cannot just win refusal generally, because all China will still do things absent the affirmative, which means absent the alternative and the affirmative, which means that it will cause worse forms of illiberal violence, i.e. autocratic crackdowns and protests, etc. in Hong Kong, demanding destroying democratic reforms, trying to imperialize, kill the Uyghurs, etc. That has two impacts. First, conventional entanglement causes nuclear war now that outweighs, ensures that the U.S. launches a nuke because they think that Chinese capabilities are eventually nuclear entangled and think that China is going to be up for a nuclear strike. Second, restraint collapse now causes a cooperation opening for China to collapse the liberal international order, destroy all liberal values, etc. as a result of the fact that the U.S. is not cooperating or engaging with alliances, outweighs, kills billions, interests. It's a discriminative form of violence that is irreversible and good. Genocide frame flips AFF from the Tunar. The first, nuclear war is genocide because billions are instantly dead as a result of a U.S.-China nuclear war. B, China is colonial and causes worse forms of genocide and autocratic violence because of the crackdowns, protests, and the crackdowns on dissent, protests, etc. It makes that genocide inevitable as a result of the alternative, the no U.S. force narrative defense stuff. I'm not really sure what they're going for. The impact defense when they go for the critique, but yes, they're testing the boundaries of conflict now. 1 year frame drop. The China's testing the boundaries of what the U.S. will react to. Second, breakup, no breakup, or rollback because of durable fiat. The K. The ballot is a question of the consequences of the plan, interaction engagement with the plan. This key to education, which is key to create informed subjects who are able to engage with the state. Comparison opportunity cost is the best. Not because they can see that consequentialism and liberal pursuit of hegemony is inevitable, so we ought to discuss the best ways to engage with it as such. That has two implications. First, this fiat is unambiguously good because it allows the testing of political strategies that can radically change the world, leads to best iteration of their model because it focuses on preparation on unique links, unique claims, and resolving alternatives. Our solves are often because it allows iterative engagement and testing of the plan, which jumpstarts radical advocacy. Their offense is incorrect on this question. The first piece is a nebulous. Fiat bad because we can't actually implement the plan argument that the 2 and C was like blown up into the 2 and R that wasn't really there. The argument is incorrect. We've conceded. The debate shapes who we are as people and radically engaging with the state is the best method for that, i.e. the fact that it engages with liberal values that are the only good thing that result and can be externalized. Then the U.S. bad offense. Second piece of negative defense was that it shapes our policy and forms activity. That's obviously good, and so that the conceded pursuit is inevitable. So it's up to us to identify the best ways to engage with the inevitable pursuit of hegemony. And if we win, the pursuit of hegemony is inevitable. It's a reason why we should engage with it. The second impact is scholarship. We've impacted our focus on only epistemology, debating over the implementation of the plan is best because their interpretation reproduces U.S. centrism through denial of iterative engagement with liberalism on face. It's not just interventions of violence for the 2 and R, but presuming that is denies nations who are dependent on the LIO for stability, peace, and safe development of the Zahin card, which is the best card in the debate and will be on the top of our card doc. All of the more fair offenses not matter because we got the impact we are going for. The interpretation also includes black people, and this is a new argument they can still occur. We should just be able to weigh the implications of the impacts of the AFF to solve an alternative the ballot can solve. We've conceded that it shapes our subjectivity, and the best is to engage with IR and liberalism because liberal values are inherently good, which is the impact turner they've chosen. Racist theory stuff is incorrect. We've read the bad authors rejected is not us, but if we win, the broader thesis our authors offense and IR being good, it does not matter. The rest of the overview stuff. One, the harsh doing it are harsh. You cannot just refuse U.S. hegemony or refuse U.S. and Chinese engagement because pursuit is inevitable because the U.S. and China will inevitably cling on to power or try to create it, which makes it create a multipolar world that makes silence inevitable. Second, there's no warrant for better. Yes, better. The Hong evidence is consistently extended throughout this debate. The U.S. supports rights, motivates movements, etc. that promotes democratic freedom and value. China is worse because authoritarian surveillance and crackdown of protests. The Hong evidence is what should frame your ballot. The sovereignty ring is wrong. One, the U.S. is better. Liberal scholarship over climate change, AI, etc. is what a result of cooperation. The MAGA evidence is great and says that that only happens when the alliances engage with the U.S. and liberal value because they want to. Second, it's non-unique, i.e. all of the impacts are either in the status quo or not made worse by the plan. Third, the alternative is worse because it cannot solve because A, China is worse, B, pursuit is inevitable. China inherently is worse, and China clings on to power as a result of the alternative. It makes it more extractive violence inevitable because they have to gain nuclear power and control. If they want to do that, gets more extraction violence, more genocidal logic, etc. because they want to maintain power. Yes, the crackdown stuff is ridiculous. Answered above with like fiat is good, but imagine if we can imagine a world where the AFF is always implemented, we should. They cannot get a rollback argument because it's bad. Answer the reject the team argument. Over on framework now, the rest of the critique, the U.S. it cycles down or causes we should refuse to take a stance. You cannot refuse to take a stance because liberal values can be separated and should be prioritized. The shift link to Richie stuff. We've consistently impacted this through the debate. Conventional shift is good because it creates mutual vulnerability to stabilize the U.S. and China. This isn't just a mythos thing that's the same as nuclear weapons because hypertonics are distinct in that no one can win a war with them, which means that it overwhelms the ability and creates a mutual vulnerability where both are vulnerable to the capabilities, but nuclear war changes that because it means that the U.S. will strike first. Nuclear extraction is worse. All our AFF arguments, and because we do not invest in nuclear war, means that the entire 2 and R frame that's like extraction and violence, where uranium mining in Africa, etc., are all AFF arguments because the AFF shifts away from nuclear extraction towards conventional development, which resolves that China is also worse, which was dropped because the competition and prioritization means that they prioritize nuclear modernization with these more extractive violence as a result of the alternative. The last argument is the IR is not democratic freedom. Yes, democratic freedom in the context of liberals. I mean, it is good because it creates liberal rights, freedom, human rights, etc. All examples of things promoted by the U.S. international liberal order. Now, the alternative one, pursuit is inevitable, which is being consistently explained in the debate. But the intervention creates worse violence. The fact that the U.S. would heavily try to cling to power means that they'll intervene in countries as a result of it causes war.
Card doc? No.
Do you all want a card doc? I'm fine.
You're good?
I'm good.
Okay, cool.
This is here. Would you all like me to call that?
Fairly history.
Just got abolition security.
No,